reward system. So when you eat something that tastes really good, how do you feel? You feel great. And the dopamine floods, right? Life is good because you just ate something that you really enjoyed. Marijuana have the same effect? Of course it does, right? But it's artificial. It's coming in from the outside. And so what it does is it negates the body's ability to manage that. So this is the reason that when you're coming to college and your supplier at home is no longer your supplier and you're searching for that new person, right? And you're going through a period of cessation, it leads to depression, anxiety, panic attacks, anger issues, right? When they're using marijuana at a young age, and even as adults, we don't learn how to emotionally regulate ourselves, which leads to all kinds of problems in the workplace. It leads to larger problems in society, okay? So my suggestion here, right, is that this is the same reason we're seeing the same problem with ADD drugs, right? Essentially amphetamines. The same thing with alcohol, as younger and younger people use it over and over again. You know, if anything, if you were going to legalize, you got to go to 30, because their brains just aren't formed until then. And so you're actually stopping your body, you're stopping your own ability to become happy. And I don't want to preach about this because, unlike the affirmative, I have used marijuana, okay? And I really enjoyed it. Yes. But I wasn't 11 when I did it, okay? My brain was fully formed. And that makes a huge difference because I made a choice as an adult in order to do that, right? And so what we propose as the negative, right, is not that we legalize it, but that we do some other things that would be really beneficial. So, for instance, we heard about how the problem is the poor, and of course it becomes a race issue, right? Okay, and this is because, why? Because police inordinately profile people of color, right? And particularly men of color. So they end up filling up the prison system, and having a privatized prison system doesn't really help with that, right? So they're feeding the prison system. So very often these are people that are first-time, second-time marijuana users, and they get caught with this. So instead, we just decriminalize it, right? It becomes a fine. And the first time you get caught with a fine, the second time you go to rehabilitation, right? We help the people. Right? We're not about throwing addicts into prison because that doesn't help the addicts and it doesn't help the prison and it doesn't help the taxpayer. But why not give them a warning, and then if they continue it and they have a serious problem, we send them to rehab, right? We spend the $3.6 billion, right, in education, rehabilitation, making sure that young people don't get their hands on the substance. All right. A couple more things, and then I'll turn it over to my illustrious companion. Well, let me just come back to this, right? Legalizing medical marijuana is the other piece. Because what will that allow us to do? One of the big complaints is that marijuana is not regulated, right? So the FDA has no oversight. And with no oversight, you don't know what you're getting, you know? As far as you know, you're smoking Miracle Grow, right? This could be a serious problem. Yeah. You're wondering why, well, this stuff was better than the last stuff. And now you know why. Yeah, it's a combination of chemicals going into the body. So the argument is, hey, FDA, they could regulate this. They could make that happen, right? This is going to be a huge bonus. So we make it legal for medical marijuana, which gives the FDA access to it, right? It takes it down from DSM-4 to a DSM-2 drug, right? We open it up so that people can really study this, because it hasn't been done. Because of reefer madness and things like this that totally just transformed this into a really negative thing in our country really early on, which some people would say was the alcohol industry making sure that it didn't have competition, and then the pharmaceutical companies eliminating some of their competition, right? So we propose to decriminalize marijuana, to deal with the racism, and to deal with the cost of incarceration, as well as putting America in prison, right? And then legalizing medical in all 50 states, right? So that people who need it, the companies that want to go out and test this, and they're coming up with phenomenal new ways to heal people with the cannabinoids in cannabis. So let's let them have it, right? And let's let them develop the drugs that they can, which will also regulate and provide the protections, right, that are put into place. So I just want to finish my little piece by saying that it's about causes, not effects. We manage the effects the best we can, but if we're not addressing the underlying cause, we're never going to stop any of the challenges that we face with people just trying to get through the day. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I think one of the big points that have been brought up by my teammate is the underlying reasons why people use drugs, in particular marijuana. And it's to escape this void, to escape the everyday life, to escape not being good enough for work or for your significant other, however you may feel. And so as my opponents have mentioned, there's numerous drugs, including opioids and alcohol, that are used to soothe this feeling, and marijuana, as a recreational drug, can do the same thing. However, I don't think that this addresses the root of the problem. Rather, it masks the problem that we deal with. I do not think that in taking a substance, a foreign substance, will allow the human body or the human mind to better overcome anything that they can on their own as a sober being. I think that marijuana, as a means to escape, simply masks the problem and does not truly allow for the individual to grow and overcome those problems in the future. Now, as someone like my teammate that has experienced marijuana before and continues to struggle with it and to know the effects of it, I can seriously say that I used marijuana in the past to escape some type of void or some type of problem in my life. But now coming to look at it in retrospect on my decisions, I realize I can deal with all of those things just with what's in here, with what I have, with what I make up. And I don't think marijuana addresses any of those issues, rather it adds to this. And so this goes into why it's important to decriminalize it, because when we decriminalize marijuana, we can spend all the money that's being spent on enforcing the criminalization of marijuana and locking people up for smoking marijuana, and we can use that money and those resources for education. And this is where it really has a part. And I think if the government backs these things that I'm talking about why through sobriety we can overcome all obstacles that we face in life, then we start seeing some real progress. So through education, we can start seeing the United States being upheld to its own moral standards. We see throughout the United States judicial system and our legislative system, United States citizens have a moral sentiment towards the laws on both sides of the aisle, whether it's gun control, pro-life, pro-choice. Both sides of the aisle have a moral sentiment. They have some inner beliefs that reflect that side. And honestly, the studies on marijuana, because it's criminal at this point, the effects are not fully understood. We know that it affects cognitive development. It affects memory by way